A bizarre zombie virus suddenly breaks out. In an instant, the hospital building is reduced to a blood-soaked hell on earth, and the culprit behind it all is just a thin slice of sashimi. It turns out that in the future world, food is in severe shortage. A wealthy merchant spends a huge sum of money to buy a fish to eat, but not long after eating the fish meat, then the wealthy merchant is rushed to the hospital for treatment. How on earth should humanity survive this disaster? Let's take a look at this Thai zombie blockbuster that just premiered on Netflix in 2025. Thai scientists have discovered that global temperatures are rising. The rapid melting of polar ice has produced a large number of unknown bacteria, causing many marine species to become extinct as a result. The whole world is facing the greatest disaster in history, and it will last for decades or even longer. Currently, many countries are experiencing riots due to food shortages. Human survival is hanging by a thread. Could it be that humanity will also become extinct? The Thai government reported the situation to the public, saying that thanks to the country's closure for over a decade, supplies are still abundant, and it still stands firm to this day. Moreover, the government will continue to work hard to restore the country to its former civilization. Please rest assured, after the news broadcast ended, Jack, who was in charge of delivering supplies, turned off the radio, told his colleague that he would resign after finishing this trip. His girlfriend Linda didn't want him to do such dangerous work. The other person asked if he was going back to the underground boxing gym. Jack said he wasn't sure yet. Then the two continued to deliver supplies, but they met with robbers hijacking the car halfway. They had no idea about Jack's strength. He used to be a professional boxer. Finding Jack difficult to deal with, one of the robbers immediately pulled out a knife to launch a surprise attack. He then grappled with Jack and shouted for everyone to come out and join in. Although these underlings had no real strength, they had the advantage in numbers. Jack couldn't break free for a while. He could only watch as the robbers opened the truck's cargo compartment. Luckily, though, Jack wasn't alone, because his colleague also knew some martial arts. Otherwise, how would he dare to do this kind of work? At this time, riots were breaking out across Thailand due to material shortages. People fought fiercely over just a little water. When the bottom line of survival was pushed infinitely low, the dam of civilization built by humans would come crashing down. It was like a doomsday scene. On the other side, Jack and his colleague had delivered the supplies to their destination, but after checking, the person in charge found the boxes damaged by the robbers and deducted their pay. Jack and his colleague then split the pay equally. After working hard for several days, each of them only got 2 fish. Jack was somewhat dissatisfied, but his colleague said that food was very precious now. At the same time, Merchant John brought a big ugly fish and met with several other merchants to discuss cooperation. He first mentioned his superior, Vasu. This man had an impressive background. He once helped Thais temporarily solve the problem of food shortages, but later on, there still wasn't enough food. Now he had found another edible big ugly fish, and specially ordered his underling to bring it for everyone to taste. As he spoke, John picked up a piece of fish meat and put it in his mouth to savor carefully. Seeing him eat with such relish, the hungry crowd hurriedly gobbled it down. They were still imagining cooperating with Vasu to turn Thailand into the world's food center. Suddenly, John's expression changed when they saw John spitting black blood and collapsing in pain. The others were immediately scared stiff. At this point, Jack came back home. His girlfriend heard the noise and hurried over. Knowing that Jack had gone out to work again, she said with concern that it was very dangerous outside now. Why wouldn't he listen no matter how many times she said it? Linda quickly took out medicine to clean her boyfriend's wounds. Then she got ready to go to work at the hospital. After successfully taking the shuttle bus to the hospital, Linda immediately threw herself into work. She was supposed to perform surgery on a patient tonight, but the director suddenly stopped her and said to follow him upstairs immediately, otherwise, the whole of Thailand would be in danger. Linda had to hand over the surgery to someone else. When they arrived, the director said that Mr. Vasu was very important to Thailand. His wife was admitted to the hospital not long ago, and he wanted to ask for the opinion of her attending doctor. Linda, Vasu, having heard some folk remedy from somewhere, insisted that the liver of the big ugly fish he brought could cure his wife's illness. He hoped Linda would allow him to feed the sick woman. They were still discussing whether the big ugly fish was really edible. On the other side, John was sent to the emergency room. Doctors had never seen such a tricky situation. They didn't know what was wrong with John. Seeing him convulsing wildly and vomiting black blood, they could only take first aid measures. But despite using all kinds of equipment, John still breathed his last, except for the doctors who were still finishing up. The others left the operating room first. Confused about how John could have come back to life, the doctor hadn't even reacted before being attacked. At this point, the director and Linda were discussing the matter of the fish liver. Suddenly, a series of screams came from ahead. Linda hurried forward to check what was happening, only to see the nurse being suddenly pinned to the ground. At the same time, Jack was at home recalling the happy times with his girlfriend. Suddenly, the radio reminded citizens not to approach Prachamat Hospital. An emergency had occurred there. Hearing that something had happened at the hospital where his girlfriend worked, Jack rushed out of the house without hesitation. He didn't even have time to eat the big ugly fish he had brought back. Before long, Jack arrived at the hospital by car. Hearing the radio announce that the government had dispatched special operations forces, he became even more anxious. But the people around him didn't take it seriously. They even thought the government was crazy for deploying special forces to deal with a lunatic. Jack, worried about his girlfriend's safety, stepped forward but was stopped by the special forces soldiers. Before he could figure out what was going on, two bodies suddenly fell to the ground with a thud. A nearby nurse carefully went into the container to check, completely unaware that the body beside it was undergoing a mutation. At this point, the Special Forces soldiers heard a terrifying sound of bone breaking and split into two groups. One group went to check on their colleagues, while the remaining soldiers attended to the doctor on the ground. Seeing that the woman lying in a pool of blood was still alive, the Special Forces soldiers quickly put away their guns and asked about her condition with concern. It was discovered that the doctor had turned into an irrational zombie. The Special Forces soldier whose carotid artery was bitten off hurriedly pulled out his pistol and shot the zombie dead. But the zombie virus was transmitted from person to person. Other people, who knew nothing about it, still walked forward foolishly. At this time, the nurse in the container was infected. Driven mad, she rushed towards the crowd. With claws and teeth bared, the scene immediately descended into chaos. Jack took advantage of the chaos and walked towards the hospital gate. Before he could walk in, a broadcast sounded, warning everyone to go back to the hospital. The consequences for those who disobey would be very serious. At first, people still wanted to leave secretly. Unexpectedly, the Special Forces suddenly fired a shot into the air, shouting that those who disobey would be shot on sight. As he spoke, he actually shot at the people rushing out of the hospital. Everyone in the hospital was too scared to make a move, but Jack only had his girlfriend in mind, so he hurried into the hospital to find her. At this time, the security guards at the hospital entrance were still maintaining order, but they saw a young man running and shouting for help. Everyone, upon hearing this, curiously looked in the direction he was running from. The security guard pressed his baton against the zombie's neck. Little did he know that the floors above were already a river of blood, completely turned into a paradise for zombies. They disemboweled their prey, took a few bites, then went chase after other living people. Linda, hiding in the pharmacy room, saw this horrifying scene. She wanted to go out to check the situation, but the injured director beside her begged her not to leave him behind. Linda agreed, saying she would go out first to check the situation. If it was safe, she would take him away. But she had only taken a few steps when she heard the sound of chewing from behind. Linda was so shocked that she couldn't move at all. At this point, the zombie noticed her presence and immediately rushed towards her. Luckily, the zombie was blocked by the collapsed shelf. Terrified, Linda rushed out and arrived at the empty corridor. She actually heard her boyfriend shout, so she immediately used the nearby pager, but she received no response. At the same time, the zombie virus spread rapidly. The whole hospital was completely turned into a living hell, with shrill screams everywhere. No matter where you hide, several new zombies will appear. At this point, Jack was still trying to contact his girlfriend via the radio. A zombie suddenly broke through the door and walked in. Its size alone was enough to inspire fear, but luckily, Jack had real martial arts skills. Seizing the opportunity, Jack gave the zombie a powerful kick, sending it flying far away. Then he tore off the nearby electric wire and tied the zombie up. In the end, he impaled the zombie like a shish kebab. After that, he successfully broke free from the horde of zombies and made his way upstairs. But as soon as he arrived, he heard a child's cry for help. At this point, the boy Jim had just narrowly escaped a disaster. Still trembling with fear, he panted heavily when suddenly a strange sound came from nearby. He stepped forward cautiously. Jim struggled desperately and broke free from the restraints. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a zombie that had been hung up. What's worse, the zombie was bloodthirsty by nature. It was twisting its body frantically in order to devour the prey in front of it. Unexpectedly, it actually pulled the rope apart. Jim reacted quickly and ran backward, hiding in the corner. He kept praying that the zombie wouldn't come near him. Unexpectedly, the zombie was crawling in a dark and twisted manner on the ground. Just as Jim was about to be caught by the zombie, suddenly, someone dragged the zombie away. Jim shouted that zombies are controlled by their brains, and that their heads should be hit hard. What Jim said was indeed useful. Jack knocked down all the surrounding zombies in just a few seconds, but knowing that Linda wasn't on this floor, he prepared to go up another floor to look for her. But Jim stopped him, saying that his mother worked on the third floor, Linda was her best friend, and they should be on the same floor. Seeing that the kid was still useful, Jack told him to hurry and lead the way. His overbearing CEO-like tone combined with his extraordinary skills left Jim completely in awe. On the other side, the first floor of the hospital and the entrance were already covered with corpses and rivers of blood. The security guard killed the last zombie nearby before he could catch his breath. He saw a child looking around for his mother. Seeing the child walk out of the hospital, the special forces outside the fence shouted for him to go back to the hospital. At this time, Thailand's top officials gathered to discuss how to solve the tricky problem of the hospital. Of course, they weren't too torn about it, considering that there are 5 million people in Thailand, while there are only 500 people in the hospital. It's obvious who is more important. They must not let the zombie virus spread. Without any hesitation, the top officials ordered to blow up the hospital immediately. The special forces who received the order installed the bombs right away. Linda was also trying to find Jack, but she met with a zombie after taking just a few steps. Luckily, though, the zombie didn't notice her, so she hurriedly turned the doorknob of the security room, only to find it locked. But the key was hanging on the corpse lying on the ground. Linda pushed the other person away with all her strength. Then she quickly got up and opened the security room door. After walking in, she hurriedly pushed over a cabinet to block the door. She had planned to contact Jack via the radio, but through the surveillance, she saw that the hospital had completely fallen. Endless despair and helplessness immediately overwhelmed her. At this point, Jack and the other person had already reached the third floor, but there were incomplete and broken corpses everywhere, and there was no sign of Linda and the others at all. Jim ran to check the duty roster and found that his mother was in charge of the 5th floor that night. The two immediately set off to go upstairs, but when they went out, they met with a zombie in a wheelchair. Seeing its clumsy movements, it finally fell to the ground. Jim immediately laughed out loud, but other zombies were attracted by the laughter. In the blink of an eye, although Jack was really good at fighting, the number of zombies was just too large. Helpless, Jack had to take the child and hide in the nearby ward. He was blocking the door, while Jim still had the leisure to chat with the people in the ward. Seeing the man pick up a tube of injection, Jim curiously asked what he was going to do. The man said that since they were going to die anyway, it would be better to meet God without pain. Then he lay down beside his seriously ill father and closed his eyes. This scene left Jim deep in thought, but now wasn't the time to be sad, because the horde of zombies had broken through the door. Jack told Jim to run for his life quickly, but the other person was staring at the father and son, being bitten by zombies. Lost in a trance, he didn't realize he needed to escape, until the zombies rushed towards him. Luckily, there was scaffolding outside. When passing the 4th floor, suddenly a zombie wearing a rabbit doll head discovered them. A strong desire to kill made it smash through the glass crazily. In the nick of time, Jack nailed the zombie to the window with an iron rod. He also held Jim in his arms. Then the two came to the 5th floor and found terrifying zombies everywhere. Luckily, many of them were busy eating. As long as they were careful, they wouldn't be discovered. Soon, Jim successfully found his mother. The mother and son hugged each other tightly. Jack knew it wasn't the right time to disturb them, but he was eager to know where his girlfriend had gone. The other person said that Linda was on the 10th floor, and told her son to go find her with Jack. She had to stay, where she was to take care of the newly born babies. Jack noticed that the woman's back was bitten. Knowing her intention, he forcibly carried Jim away. But just after walking a short distance, the zombie virus in the woman's body spread rapidly. Jim, unaware of what was happening, was still making a fuss. He bit Jack and ran back. The irrational woman paid no heed to her son's cries. Her mind was filled with only the thought of eating people. Suddenly, a cry came from behind, and the zombies were immediately drawn to it. Jack quickly took Jim and left, managing to shake off the horde of zombies with great difficulty. On the other side, Linda, thinking her boyfriend had met with misfortune, huddled on the ground crying bitterly. Suddenly, as if she had thought of something, she quickly looked at the monitoring display. Finding that Vasu was still alive, she hurried to the ward and told him to open the door. She managed to get inside, just as the zombies were about to rush over. Vasu warily asked if she was injured, and only relaxed when he got a negative answer. He also comforted her, saying that this luxury ward was very safe, and that someone would definitely come to rescue them. It was true that Vasu was very important to Thailand. The top brass had already issued an order, instructing the best special forces team to rescue Vasu and his wife. At this point, although Vasu and the others were relatively safe, his wife wouldn't last much longer. The woman's illness required constant blood transfusions. Looking at the nearly empty blood bag, Vasu said that he had saved Thailand in a time of crisis. Now that his wife needed help, he asked Linda to go find blood bags, but he promised that when the rescue team arrived, he would take Linda with them. Meanwhile, Jack had reached the 10th floor. Seeing that the fire escape door was locked, he immediately picked up a steel rod to pry it open. Suddenly, the roar of a helicopter came from nearby. Jim naively thought the government had sent someone to rescue them. Little did he know that the bomb would explode in half an hour, and the special forces were only here to rescue Vasu and his wife. At this point, Linda walked out of the ward. She cautiously observed the path to the room, where the blood bags were stored. But outside, bloodthirsty zombies roamed everywhere. But Linda still decided to give it a try. Linda was shocked by the scene in front of her after walking in. Just as she was about to be caught up by the zombies, reinforcements arrived in time. Jack let out a loud roar to attract the attention of the zombie horde. Knowing that his girlfriend was still alive, he was immediately filled with motivation. Waving the steel rod in his hand and struggling to kill the zombies, on the other side, the fully armed special forces cleared the way with gunfire, and found Vasu in no time. They also thoughtfully replaced his wife's blood bag, and then prepared to carry her to the helicopter. At the same time, Jack was still entangled with the zombie horde, but he found that his girlfriend was in great danger. He couldn't break free at all, so he could only shout, hoping that someone would save Linda. Jim rushed into action after hearing that, but the size difference between the two sides was really too big. With Jim's help, Linda hurried to crawl toward the blood bank, but her intuition told her that the zombies had definitely spotted her, and she thought she was about to die. Suddenly, Jack rushed out and knocked the zombie to the ground. Still not satisfied, he angrily smashed the zombie's head countless times. If Linda hadn't stepped in to stop him, the zombie's head would have turned into a pulp. The two, having survived the disaster, hugged tightly, grateful that their beloved was still alive. On the other side, the special forces escorted Vasu and his wife to the location of the helicopter. It's just that their target was too big, and no matter how careful they were, they would alarm the zombie horde. The danger was temporarily averted. Seeing a comrade bitten by a zombie, the special forces soldier immediately shot him dead, but the person killed was a military doctor. Vasu demanded that another doctor be found immediately. Aware of Vasu's importance, the special forces soldiers complied with his request, and even went back to look for Linda, who might still be alive. They first shot Jack to the ground, then tried to drag Linda away by force. Having finally found his girlfriend, Jack wouldn't allow anyone to take her away. After all, the ruthless special forces soldiers couldn't protect her at all, so Jack, dragging his injured body, attacked the special forces soldiers. Fighting multiple opponents at once was definitely disadvantageous, but luckily, the zombies were also helping Jack. Jack skillfully dodged the Special Forces soldier's bullets. With the help of a crutch, Jack immediately launched an attack and grabbed the rope on the other's helmet. According to the plan, the Special Forces soldier would be strangled, but unexpectedly, he suddenly took out a dagger and cut the rope. Then the two grappled with each other. At first, the Special Forces soldier still used a pistol, but he found that in close quarters combat, using a gun had no advantage at all, so he took off his helmet, rushed forward, and engaged in a fierce hand-to-hand fight with the opponent. Jack was injured, and gradually couldn't withstand the Special Forces soldier's strong attacks. After a few rounds, he was grabbed by the throat by the other. As his consciousness faded, a rushing zombie actually saved his life. Jack quickly counterattacked, punching and breaking several of the other's back molars, and used a finishing move to completely finish off the Special Forces soldier, but he was also unable to stand up again. In a trance, he saw the Special Forces soldier being frantically bitten by zombies. He thought he would be killed soon too, but Linda took him to a relatively safe place, immediately gave him treatment, and took out the bullet from his collarbone. Before long, Jack opened his eyes and found that his girlfriend was still alive and well. He quickly got up and took out the long-prepared ring. He said that after they successfully escaped from the hospital, they would go to a place isolated from the world to live. At this time, Jim heard a strange sound, and quietly opened the door crack to observe carefully. He found that the Special Forces soldier had turned into a zombie, and immediately told Jack and the other person about it. A few seconds later, the door of the room where the three were hiding opened automatically. The zombie rushed in immediately. Jack threw an alcohol bottle at it. The zombie roared angrily, thinking that everything was finally over. Jack and the other two prepared to escape from the hospital, but the earlier fire triggered the automatic fire suppression system. What's terrifying is that, the moment water touched the zombies, they opened their eyes, then they convulsed wildly and regained vitality. This virus was really too abnormal. At this point, Jack and the others met with Vasu and his wife. It's just that Vasu's wife is in a very bad state, and has actually been bitten. Linda hoped that Vasu would leave quickly, but he was too infatuated, and despite knowing the danger, he insisted on getting close. In just a few seconds, Vasu and his wife were completely overwhelmed by the horde of zombies. One of the zombies even pulled out their hearts. At this point, Jack and the other two had fled to the corridor, and specifically used a steel rod to bar the door. But now, all the zombies in the hospital had revived, and easily smashed through the door. Seeing the horde of zombies approaching menacingly, Jack shouted for Linda and the other to leave first, while he stayed behind to cover their retreat. After speaking, he picked up a steel rod and lured the zombie horde away. He struck the zombies with one blow after another, even thoughtfully giving them a set of tooth-grinding service. On the other side, Linda took Jim to the rooftop. They saw the helicopter and were about to board it, but were stopped by the Special Forces with a scolding. The other person carefully checked if the two had been bitten. After confirming there was no problem, they asked where Vasu had gone. Seeing Linda remain silent, the Special Forces knew that their comrades and Vasu had been killed. They prepared to leave immediately. Luckily, this Special Forces soldier was a good person, and agreed to take the two with him. But Linda and Jim begged bitterly, saying there was one more person. The Special Forces soldier was very helpless, but still agreed to wait for another 5 minutes. At the same time, Jack hid in a car. Faced with the overwhelming attacks, he really couldn't hold on anymore. Even though Jack is the main character, but judging from the current situation, his chance of survival is only 1%. The horde of zombies wished they could flip the whole car over. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, and all the zombies were immediately blown to pieces. Jack actually survived, but the number of zombies that died was only a small part. The zombie horde behind them was the real big problem. At this point, the bomb would explode in just over 2 minutes. The Special Forces knew they couldn't wait any longer, so they told their comrades to take off. Immediately, Linda tried her best to stop them, but it was completely useless. Looking outside the helicopter, she saw that her boyfriend had fought his way out and run to the rooftop, but the zombie horde followed closely behind and also chased over. In the end, Jack failed to get on the helicopter. The horde of zombies broke through the door with all their strength and charged at him. Jack didn't wait to die in place. After all, killing two would be a gain for him. While he was enjoying the killing, the bomb planted by the Special Forces exploded violently. blowing the whole building to pieces. Linda, who saw everything, broke down in tears and hugged Jim tightly. The film ends here. This film shows the director's painstaking efforts in pursuit of realism. The whole film resolutely didn't use CGI fake filters. All zombies were portrayed by real people with special effects makeup. It's indeed more realistic and oppressive. Although the hospital building was finally blown up, and the zombies were buried in the ruins, but everyone knows that everything isn't over, because John wasn't the only one who ate sashimi at that time. Moreover, after the leading man brought his salary home, a special shot was given to that fish. If you look closely, you can see that it's the same type as the one John ate, and Jack and his team transported a whole truck of such fish. Therefore, the scope of the hidden danger has been infinitely expanded. If you like my channel, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe.